Yo, what is going on? Welcome to, if you're still here or you're here for the first time, congrats on surviving MLB opening day. I'm Easy, and today I'm going to be walking through. I finally put the first MLB daily sheet up on the site. So I'm going to take some time to walk through what I use this sheet for in my daily fantasy journey for MLB, for Underdog, and for Draftkings, for prop betting. So I'll walk through basically the sheets as I use them, and we'll take a look at this slate for Draftkings and Underdog. I'll rely on the audience to tell me which site they prefer to take a look at. So Grill, Chipsky, GM. So basically what I do is I've been scraping or trying to find ways to scrape the different site details or slate details for projected lineups, scores, money line odds, etc. So that all lineups, most importantly, GM and GM to cat season on the blockchain. Vote for Underdog. So basically this is all semi-automated to pull in the lineups as they confirm, scores, projections, etc. So this feeds a lot of what goes on here. This game already happened. The Mets, congrats to them. They got one hit. It was a home run, but they got one hit in opening day at home. This game is currently going on. And the rest of these games, I think DraftKings slate has all of these. The Underdog is actually not included Toronto, Tampa Bay. So, we'll start. This is just where the data comes in. But, we've added a new player, Ben Rortvet. Who the F are you, and why did you decide to ruin my day? Hold, please. Love live stuff. And you'll be up in no time. Ben. Thank you for classic bullpen catcher who apparently starting for the Rays. He's getting added to the system. There he is. All right. So anyway, this is all the pitchers, but we don't need the Milwaukee Mets. So we'll go to. Looks like we have Underdog. So I'll just start with the Underdog here. So, this is the pitcher who they're facing, right? So AJ Puck is on the Marlins, but he's facing the Pirates, and vice versa. Martin Perez facing here. So we pull in the projection, the pricing. This is actually DraftKings pricing, but money line, the K9 projections for season long. Carlos Rodon, the top strikeout pitcher on the slate, but based on the lineup for the Astros actually have one of, if not the best strikeout reducing lineup on the slate. So overall, the K matchup, is not great, but Rodon, in theory, is a good K pitcher. We'll see how he lasts. But anyway, this, rolls in, the pitcher quality projections, lineup quality, some risk factors as it relates to the lineups, how often they walk, how often the pitcher walks, so that as it impacts, pitch counts and, their potential to get bounced from a game early. So all that aggregates basically into, strikeout projections, earned runs, whip, etc. So the stats that matter for Underdog. And truthfully, I've been spending most of the day so far getting this operational up on the site. If you subscribe to the site, easydfs.xyz, you now have access to the Google Drive where I post these. I only post them the days that I play. That's sort of my promise to you as a tout. I don't want to post things that I haven't scrubbed through and things I'm not going to have money behind. And I don't play MLB DFS every day, but the days that I do play, you will have I drafted last night, but I haven't had it today. I am surprised to see Carlos Rodon projecting so well here. He is not even close to the top projected pitcher on the slate. But you know what? Because it's pulling in Spencer Strider. I mean, this is just like really classic stuff. Just doesn't drive the hitter projections, just the pitcher stuff. There we go. That's better, isn't it? That didn't make sense. This is better. AJ Puck. AJ Puck. Wow, this is really great. Some ifs. Some ifs. This. All right, the sausage has been made, and somehow not too many people left. Anyway, now this looks more like it. So I've got Merrill Kelly projected. So for Underdog, right? I guess in the most drafts, 6 get drafted unless you're doing 10 mans. I don't know if there are any 10 mans, but Merrill Kelly and George Kirby kind of a cut above as the 1, 2, but still not huge separation from the Joe Musgroves, who I think is SP4. Bobby Miller close behind. Logan Allen. I have Nick Pivetta as the 6, but this is pretty flat. It looks like AJ Puck is being drafted here, but it depends on how many innings he gets. If he only gets 4, but if he gets closer to 5, 4.5, let's say, he can move up a couple spots. So pitcher is fairly flat here. I think Kelly, Kirby the first year. I don't think it's hardly ever worth paying up for pitcher. But then it's extremely flat. So if we're looking at, and I'm looking at like 2 screens here, but if you're looking at Underdog ADP, like Rodon doesn't really go that often, but he's projected 1 point behind Bobby Miller, who gets drafted every time. So, theoretically good spot there. And also all the Astros bats likely getting drafted. Chip says never pitcher. So yeah, this is pitcher. As far as like sneaky stuff, like AJ Puck is probably being overdrafted, I think, just given, the likelihood of how deep he might go into this game. But, Christian Javier and Carlos Rodon against, obviously these are 2 good-ish, maybe pitchers, but really good lineups. But, if they strike out, if the batters strike out, you can run into a good game here. So guys that are getting underdrafted, for sure. Then lineups. So the Dodgers at a almost 5.5 implied team total, same for Arizona, are the top 2 stacks of the slate. And that's reflected in ADP. Mookie is the 101, Ohtani is the 103, Freeman is the 105. Mets fumbled Wheeler so bad. Yeah. I mean, that was crazy. I mean, DeGrom, Wheeler, Matt Harvey. Geez. And I'm probably missing 2. I remember there being like a strong 5, but yeah, RIP to the late 2000s or early 2010s Mets pitching staff there. But the Dodgers at 13%, I have as the top stack of the day. Arizona not far behind. Then you have Houston and the Yankees in that next tier. Miami. So this is one. Miami's an interesting one. And we can look. So this is kind of like an all-in-one, but just like individually here, they're ranked in that same order. So Dodgers 1, Arizona, Houston, Yankees. Here's Miami. Kind of cheat sheet for stats of what I think matters and things that I'll look at. My underdog projections, weighted on base average, WOBA, isolated power. This is driven by underlying projections plus matchup plus handedness for the day. So Josh Bell switch hitter, Jake Berger, righty versus lefty, Luis Arias, lefty versus lefty. So this would all change. If Luis Arias was facing a righty, he'd be in a slightly better matchup. Brian De La Cruz, would get a slight downgrade. So Miami's an interesting one that I want to talk about. So I'm looking at their ADPs. Jake Berger, 22, goes in most, if not all drafts, definitely deservedly so. Good power profile, batting in the middle of this lineup. Jazz is a 31 ADP, so he's going most-ish drafts. It's not a button that people probably like to click because it's a lefty versus lefty. But again, Martin Perez, and I've said this, over the days, weeks, months, years. The lefty versus lefty is not great, but a good hitter can overcome that. Just gestures and that, I don't know. But it's likely only 2, maybe 3 ABs versus Perez. And if, things go well for this lineup, Perez is going to get out of this game. And if you're getting 5 ABs, what like median, well, mode is like 4 or 5 ABs for a game, right? 70% of the time you're getting 4 or 5 ABs, but against the starter, you're only going to get 2 or 3. So that leaves 2 to 3 versus the relievers. And because this lineup is pretty right-hand heavy against the lefty, it wouldn't surprise me, if Josh Chisholm gets some favorable matchups. I really like this, mini stack, but I think you can actually stack a lot of this lineup. Josh Bell is on the draft fringe. Luis Arias is not great necessarily for this format, given the pretty low power, but if you're doing a 4+ man stack, I don't hate it if he can double his way and score a bunch of runs. But the meat of this lineup: Bell, Berger, De La Cruz, Jazz. This little 4-man. I don't know, like if I would really expand it beyond here, like you can maybe tuck yourself into Avisail Garcia as an outfielder that doesn't get drafted much, and Tim Anderson, maybe, like not much power. I think I'd probably rather just go Arias, but this Miami one definitely caught my eye. The Padres as well. So let me look at their ADPs. I drafted some last night, just trying to get a feel for this slate. And the first one that I did was the Padres. So Kyle Harrison, he's a very young pitcher. Something I was pretty excited about for best ball, but I think he's got a wide range of outcomes. I wouldn't say he's a top prospect, but he's a prospect with some upside. Let's look at like his projections. Kyle Harrison. So projections 10 Ks per 9. So that's a pretty good K profile. A 4.3 FIP, is mediocre to average. But the big number here, the reason why he could be pretty variable is this walks per 9. He's, except for Zach Thompson, who's the worst pitcher on the slate. Kyle Harrison is, very much a risk for walks. And, we saw a little bit of that. We saw a lot of that in the minors, and we saw a little bit of that in his major league debut last year. So in DFS, I think it's a good and bad thing. I think one, it could be, there's a reason why, like, his projection would be better if it wasn't for this. So if he, for some reason, can figure it out, great. But if he doesn't, the Padres can knock him around, get him out of the game early, get on base a whole lot, cycle through that lineup. So, I'm not against necessarily taking, I'll have to look at like what his price is on Draftkings. Kyle Harrison, 7,800. So he's not even that cheap. But he's pretty low owned. So I'm actually not against the play. Not to talk out of both sides, but I think he's really good to stack against because I think that volatility will be there. High strikeout, high walk guy. It's not a great ballpark in San Diego, but the top 4 of this lineup is pretty stacked, particularly 2 through 4. Fernando Tatis going in the second round. Manny Machado, mainstay. Xander Bogaerts goes in a lot, but Ha-Seong Kim, his projection is way up there. Granted, not a lot of power, but could definitely double his way into a big game. Luis Campusano was a pretty big prospect. He's a catcher, but it's a daily game, so I would keep the light on for him for someone who's not getting drafted all the time. Jurickson Profar, not a big power profile here, but fits the outfield spot. So, I really like this Padres core, and I'm not against opening it. Like, I think Kim is going way underdrafted. For a guy who's probably hitting leadoff. What's this note? Oh, you got a steal. Yeah, single double steal type guy, score some runs, but Tatis, Machado, Padres definitely a team I'm looking to target. We can go back up to like the top teams just real quick. Like, I don't know how much there is to say. Obviously, Mookie against a lefty is going to be my top projected Dodger of the day, especially leading off. He kind of breaks all the conditional formatting. Ohtani, too. And then interestingly, let me see if ADP reflects this. It probably doesn't, right? Will Smith is my 3 over Freddie Freeman. Granted, Freeman can't hit lefties well, and you're probably not going to see so much of Thompson, but Will Smith, a higher power per, plate appearance guy, batting 4th, going cheaper than Freddie Freeman. Will Smith is my Max Muncy of the day for sure. Teoscar's like right up there with him. So when you're considering positional scarcity, if I were to do rankings, which TBD, because I'm trying to map the player IDs as they change every day. So for now, you guys have if you subscribe to the site, you'll have access to this sheet, which has this tab, which has all the players, and try and sort it by points. So you can use this to sort of help inform your rankings. I wouldn't just do points. I think positions matter, isolated power matters, right? So like all else being equal, let's say, Altuve and Judge, perfect example, project for 10.8, 10.9 points, but Aaron Judge, just like isolated power, it's not the only stat that matters. It's just an easy one to say, like, as a tiebreaker, like, what is the spikeability, for Aaron Judge? Like, my home run to have him at fair price at around plus 202, Altuve at plus 360. So he's, almost like, let's say 1.5 times as likely to hit a home run. Based on what I have here. The number is kind of small, but like 0.33 versus 0.22 home runs what I have. So, as a tiebreaker, right, you'd probably want the more power guy. But to go back here, Teoscar looks like a steal in drafts. Max Muncy is someone that I'm going to lose a lot of money on this year because projections love him. He's going to have big games, and he's going to have a lot of games where he strikes out looking with the bases loaded or runners on the corners and nobody out, ground into double play if he happens to make contact. But he's batting 6th. Lefty versus lefty is not great, but if things go well, you're not going to see, I keep saying this, you're not going to see a whole lot of Thompson. And I think Max Muncy is really going to be low owned, and this 9-point projection accounts for the handedness of Zach Thompson. So you just got to be careful not to double and triple count things, which I think is, a big pitfall for a lot of folks playing any DFS, but especially MLB, right? So Zach Thompson, like this, if this is a 9-inning game, Zach Thompson is probably only getting 4 innings on average. So you're getting 5 innings of bullpen, and that bullpen is distributed, league average, like something like 70-30 righty lefty. I don't know the specifics of the Cardinals bullpen, but again, don't just assume, Max Muncy is going to have the bad side of the platoon the whole game. Chris Taylor, by the way, I bet his hit prop earlier today like that. But the thing is with the Dodgers, because they're so deep, like this is a perfect team. If you're going, you're playing a big field contest, on Underdog, like James Outman, Kike Hernandez. Like Kike Hernandez projects for 8 points. Is pretty much the worst on the Dodgers, which would make him the second best, more or less, on the Marlins. So, he definitely deserves to be given some love on these teams. So that's the Dodgers. Diamondbacks obviously put up a bajillion runs last night. The big change to the lineup, Jock Peterson in versus the righty. Where is he going? 27. Yeah, that's like way too cheap. So, Jock Peterson is a nice mainstay. Like Alec Thomas is, he's like sort of light hitting, but can double his way, into some big games. So I think like Lourdes Gurriel is probably overpriced given what he did yesterday. I'd rather, stick to like these guys, even an Alec Thomas there. Astros, like against a lefty, Altuve is almost always going to be like at the top and fighting with Jordan. But either of them are obviously very good on the slate. Altuve is like pretty underpriced, I think, the last 2 days against the Yankees lefties. Didn't do it yesterday, but we'll see what today brings. Alex Bregman, pretty cheap as well. Chas McCormick, Yainer Diaz, good pop, not often drafted. So if I was playing Astro stacks, I would expand it in this 6-7 in really good spots here. Yankees, Soto, what an awesome debut. Not necessarily filling up the stat sheet, but I think he saw something like 30 pitches yesterday throughout a guy at the end of the game. My non-Yankee fans probably don't care, but I do. I mean, it's my show. But Soto going before Judge is probably about right against a righty. They both belong in the first round. If you're stacking, the Yankees the fourth best stack. Like Rizzo's in a pretty decent spot. Glaber, all that's obvious. I don't know how deep I would go. Right, there's not a whole lot of power outside of this top five, but is Giancarlo as an outfielder not bad. Josh, howdy. So Seattle versus Nick Pivetta. So this is an interesting one where you talk about leverage, right? So Nick Pivetta is a good, not great pitcher in a good pitcher's ballpark. He on Underdog, he's going to be drafted pretty often. And I think this is a really good spot where like the sixth best pitcher is also facing the sixth or so best offense. So you can get, some nice leverage here playing, and they have some good power. So Julio, the right view right, not something I'm worried about. Right view right, by the way, just like anecdotally, if you're newish to MLB, let me see if I can pull up the historical stats that I use. But just if you want to think about it this way, like 75% of the world, of the baseball world is right-handed throwing. So as you grow up playing baseball, you face right-handed pitchers a lot more often, and they're more common even in lower levels. So like the right view right, I have as a right view right, I have is about -4% versus baseline. However, left versus left is somewhere in the neighborhood of -10. It adds about 11% to strikeouts, subtracts like 15% from power, about 8% from weighted on base. So lefties are more rare throwing like in the super junior levels. So you just face them less often, right? So right view right is not something you're nearly as scared about as a left view left. Like a left view left is 2 to 3 times as bad as a right view right. Right view right is only about a -4%. So, and then as far as like opposite hand, righties versus lefty pitchers is about a 9% boost on average, what I've looked at over the years, and a lefty versus a righty is about a 7 to 8% boost. So, that's all accounted for here, but I just wanted to spell that out. So anyway, Julio definitely not worried about, and I think, he's very draftable. And then not much else going in this, which makes sense because people like Pivetta. But Cal Raleigh really has good power. Mitch Haniger went deep yesterday, hits the outfield spot. Someone that I like and I'm starting to get to learn is this Dominic Canzone guy. Canzoni, I don't know. So he's got a 35.9 ADP, which means he's very, very rarely drafted. Batting seventh is not the sexiest, but to fill the outfield spot, got some power, handed disadvantage. I think you could do worse than him as a stack on. JP Crawford is okay, but not a huge power guy. Polanco and Garver. Actually prefer both of them to JP Crawford because they will be, well, maybe not, Polanco goes higher, but Garver will be lower owned and, has a better home run prop probably by like 1.5x. Yeah, handedness Nuggets. Cleveland is a team that I'm almost never going to be excited about, but like you should probably, if you're playing the game the right way, be overexposed to. Like Jose Ramirez goes in every draft, and then that's about it. Josh Naylor probably in most. So this is a good mini, but then Jimenez batting second in a really good spot. Ross Stripling for, is it Oakland that's playing Cleveland, is a fairly mediocre pitcher. It's not a great ballpark, but this is like a medium to big slate. It's not the biggest slate, but again, like Cleveland's odds of being the top stack for the slate, about 6%, which may not seem super high, but again, it's like they're 6.4% and the Yankees are 8.5%. It's really not much there. Billy, what's up, man? Good question. For handedness, are you leaning more into universal rules or is it player by player? So I've actually gone back and forth and with Cardi on this years ago. And by that, I mean, I sent him a DM and he replied, and I sent him another DM and he replied. And then I think that was it. But basically from my research and my discussion with him, reverse splits for hitters does not exist. Or more specifically, reverse splits for hitters might exist. There's just no statistical predictability. Reverse splits for pitchers do exist, and there's some predictability. It's just, you'd have to look at, in like, if you're a ball knower, you might be able to understand, but like, righties that throw two seamers where it runs the opposite way, or throw sinkers, or types of pitches that run opposite ways, will have a different batted ball profile against than conventional, right? So if you think about the reason why you can see like lefties have an advantage versus righties, and I don't know if this, like, I can illustrate it with my hands, but it's the opposite hand allows you to see the ball kind of for longer, and most of the spin is coming towards, like, away from you, away towards you, right? So it's running into your barrel. So all that to say, I use the general rules for everything. I haven't looked at it's not specific for pitchers or hitters. It's just kind of lefty versus righty versus lefty, uses those boosts. If I were to ever hit it in the super big time, I would, eventually I would try to invest in, trying to analyze that. But pitchers turn over so often, it's like super hard, and trying to get bullpen data, like batted balls from minor leaguers as they come up, above my pay grade. Cardi might do it. I'm actually not sure that he does based on my conversation with him. He definitely doesn't for hitters, but for pitchers he might. I'm not sure. Hopefully that helps. So yeah, like Ramirez and Naylor, Bo Naylor, his brother, the catcher, a little bit of pop, probably like a little too fancy. Steven Kwan, like no pop. I don't know if he can get there. Ramon Laureano, I don't hate it. Pittsburgh against AJ Puck. So AJ Puck is sort of like the Garrett Crochet of the day. And by that, I mean, well, Crochet has been injured in reliever. But AJ Puck is a super post-side prospect who kind of came over when Jesus Luzardo did from Oakland, and came up as like kind of a bulk reliever, or he came up as a starting pitcher, and kind of failed and sputtered out and was hurt. Now he's back and starting. I don't know. I don't have huge hopes for how long he goes into this game, but he's pretty high K guy if he can stay in the game. But definitely always some risk as you stretch guys out. So I think this is pretty attackable. Again, it's not like a great ballpark, and it's a pretty uninteresting team. But I think for AJ Puck is someone who's getting drafted pretty often. Like, could Brian Hayes go? Like Hayes and Reynolds. I think Reynolds is my top guy that I want, on this team. But like Olivares, if he doesn't get pinch hit for, Henry Davis probably doesn't have much pinch hit risk. He is an infielder, sadly, on this slate. Connor Joe has some pinch hit risk, so just be aware of that there. And then as far as like these last few kind of gross teams, I'll see if anyone like jumps off the page. Like I always like Nolan Gorman, someone that I was really high on in the best ball season. Lefty, bats in the middle of the lineup, big power guy. Like these are the matchups. Like it's not a great matchup per se, but it's a right-handedness, and he's not going to get pulled from the game. I think he started against the lefty, or is slated to start against lefties. I don't think there was a lefty yesterday for the Dodgers, but batting third here. The problem is like there's not much around him to love. Like I think he's okay as a one-off. Like if you're doing a 4-1 and you want a completely undrafted guy, I think you could do worse than Nolan Gorman. Oakland, the return of Esteury Ruiz. Projection pretty good. A lot of that's driven by stolen bases. It's going to be really hard for him to separate, I think, on the slate. But if he gets on base, you can almost always add on, a stolen base each time. Canzone and Gorman written down. Their home run odds are decent. Yeah. I mean, for sure, like Gorman, I think is the top home run guy on St. Louis. Canzone, I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm glad that the research matches the research there. Nez, GM, can't spell Nez without easy, or vice versa. Thoughts on the Hoskins slide? I didn't see it, but is that what Jeff McNeil was complaining about? I don't know. I did not see it personally. Oakland versus Logan Allen. Like, is Logan Allen getting drafted each time? Like, Logan Allen is on the fringes of draftability. So I think anyone in that conversation, and like, again, like the projections here, like it's so flat, right? Like a lot of these guys are in the high 7s and 8s. So compared to someone like the Marlins, it's really not giving up much there. So like, I don't love Ruiz, but he fits outfield. I really like Brent Rooker, with some pop, and fits outfield. Zach Eloff. Like, this is a stack that I had a lot of in the preseason for drafts. JD Davis, 877 runs now, called JD Davis. It's actually a JG Wentworth play, and my monotone is really doing well selling that. Anyone else on this team? Is Ryan Noda in the lineup or not in the lineup? I see he's got a projection, but he's not in this lineup. I think he's a lefty, so I don't know if he'll be in the lineup. Venture to guess. Do not side with Jeff McNeil. Didn't seem like anything. I don't know. Video spikes up into second. I played baseball not well. Was like kind of scared of sliding because I was like late to baseball and not very good. So I never really learned how to slide properly. So I don't love sliding, but I don't know. Hot take. I'm a spikes up guy. Like, you got to break up the double plays, make baseball violent again. I don't love running over catchers. But I'm fine with spikes up. But if that's not what happened, then that's not what happened. San Francisco against Joe Musgrove. So let's see. Musgrove goes like every draft. San Francisco is an interesting one, where there's talent on this team, but they don't play in a good ballpark. Well, they're at San Diego, but still not a good ballpark. But there is like some good talent on this team, right? Jorge Soler, Jung Lee's like, I think, okay, like double triples guy. Lamont Wade against the handedness, like Matt Chapman. So it's not a good matchup, but like I can sell myself on Soler And what's nice about them, they're similar to the Cubs yesterday in that a lot of their top bats, so like Lee, Soler, Conforto, are outfield eligible, which is nice at the end of draft. So I think like taking two of these guys at the end of a draft, if you went infielder heavy on, let's say, you know, Diamondbacks, did Marte Walker type thing. Like I think you could finish it up with 2 or 3 Giants and feel pretty good about, getting different. And if it seems like I'm not taking stances, you're right. I'm not. I'm just sort of laying the cases out, and we can take a look at like, my absolute favorites, but laying the case out for everyone. Something to keep, like, it's so hard to win, especially if you're just drafting from the top of ADP, like of the top, 10 picks, like, I don't know, they're like all in these teams. And then of the next 10 picks, like half of them from these teams. So let's say close to half of the drafted player pool is from these 4 teams. And then there's 10 other teams on the slate. So just like odds wise, it's very, very, it's harder to get to the top of a leaderboard. Thought the slide was borderline dirty, spikes up onto the back leg. Nah, get out of the way. I don't know. Hot take. They're paid a lot of money, man. You can, if you're playing second base as a high, go play third if you're scared of getting slid into. Freddie Freeman, is that a 0 or is that an over? We can look at props if you have a Freddie Freeman prop that you're interested about. I have them all projected out. Colorado here after getting smoked by Arizona yesterday. I don't think there's any correlation day over day. Let's see. Is Nolan Jones getting drafted? Probably, right? Wow, Nolan Jones, 33. I think that's an oversight. Nolan Jones, I think, really good spot. Merrill Kelly's good. He's like borderline. He's not great. He's good, not great. But like, he's like a 7 out of 10 pitcher. In the ballpark is whatever. But like a Nolan Jones, Ryan McMahon, I think is a really good little mini there. For sure. Not a whole lot else to love on this team. And then finally, the team in the worst spot of the day, the Red Sox. Red Sox, is anyone being drafted on the Red Sox? Devers is, and that's about it. So like obviously Devers kind of jumps off the page with Tristan Casas. He is a 35-7 ADP. Really good. Like the problem is like he's an infielder, right? So like how do you differentiate between like guys like Casas and Gorman? But again, like against a pitcher that's getting drafted each time, and when he goes off, it really hurts. It's going to hurt 17% of the field that has George Kirby on their teams, right? Jarren Duran, he's like I wouldn't call him oatmeal per se, but not super high power. But I think in a stack, like outfield spot like this plays well. So I really like this little 3-man here. Yoshida, if I like had to go completely off the wall here, I'm not against expanding, dropping down to get Yoshi there. So I don't know if Alex is still here and we wanted to look at Freddie Freeman props. Got his hits at minus 300-ish, which is high, but I think he's at a 1.5 hits, so it's hard to get there. 2.2 total bases. Historically, if you're betting like the total bases at 1.5, I usually don't want to bet an over unless it's at like 2.1, 2.2, so it's probably borderline on the over on 1.5 there. But again, he's facing the lefty, but probably only 2 ABs, and Freddie Freeman's a professional hitter. You can hit lefties well. So I don't love Freeman. I think I like him less than the field for sure. So yeah, as far as Underdog, the top 4 teams are the top 4 teams. I really personally like the Padres. I really like the Padres. I like Gorman as a one-off. I like this Red Sox little double or triple mini here as well for off the wall, and I like Oakland. So those are going to be my preferred ways to lose money on this slate for Underdog. And then on Draftkings, we'll take a look just real quick as I have to go build my lineups. But AJ Puck, if he can get, see his innings, you gotta copy a formula over and see how it goes. Boom. All right. Pitching ownership looks like relatively efficient. Savale for Tampa, or for, he's not for Tampa. Is he on Toronto? No, he's Toronto facing Tampa. Tampa facing Toronto. I have that backwards. In a good matchup, Carlos Rodon, definitely like a boom bust profile today for sure against Houston. One of the higher team totals on the slate, but might get paid off, and he's pretty cheap. And same for Kyle Harrison here as well. So Harrison and Rodon are kind of jumping off here. And then as far as stacks, the highest owned stacks, obviously the highest owned stack, Miami. They must be pretty cheap. Yeah, Jake Berger, kind of jumping off the page. A lot of the bottom of this lineup is absolute like bottom price. So maybe an avoid on DraftKings, have them optimal less than the ownership. But with the Padres, I think, not a whole ton of power, but and they're pretty expensive. But if you can find a cheap pitcher, I kind of like that. I like the catcher batting fifth at 3,800 as well. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for being here. Go to easydfs.xyz. If you signed up for the all access for the year, you have access for the year for all sports that I did. But so yeah, thanks for hanging out. I'll be back probably next week to do another kind of slate run through. If you guys have any questions, drop them on Twitter, drop them here, drop a like on your way out, and good luck in the streets and have a nice weekend. Peace.